Hello friends, I am Arpit and I am here with today's analysis. Today is 11th of February and we will be dealing with two very important topics which are in news, out of which one is the thematic topic which we are discussing, that is the economic survey. In yesterday's class, we started with the chapter 1. We did the first part of the chapter 1, that is global economic condition and domestic economic condition. Now in this segment, we will be covering the remaining part of chapter 1. We've entered into the Indian economic condition and we are discussing the Indian economic condition already. The remaining part of it will be discussed. The first topic is ISRO's NVS-02 mission. This is ISRO's navigation satellite, NavIC, or Indian Regional Navigation Satellite System. This mission is as of now considered as failed because this satellite had to be deployed in the geostationary orbit from the geosynchronous orbit. But the throttle valves did not open and the maneuvering did not happen. So it was not there deployed in the geostationary orbit where it could function properly. Rest of the top jobs which it had to perform, it is performing, but this major positioning is not happened. Due to which, as of now, the ISRO team is identifying ways to utilize this satellite in a much better way. So let's see what happens. So, and let's discuss this particular topic first, that is ISRO's NVS-02 mission. So ISRO definitely there is a setback when this NVS-02 satellite, which was designated to be in the geostationary orbit, is not positioned over there in the geostationary orbit. Why? Because the satellite's thrusters failed to ignite. If they could have ignited, then motion would have happened. And this particular issue prevented the necessary orbit adjustments. So what went wrong actually? Thrusters which are meant to raise the satellite's orbit. So this is the Earth, this is the satellite, it is rotating in this orbit, let's suppose. But we want it to go there and rotate in this orbit. Then we need to switch on the thrusters, then only it will go from this orbit to that orbit. Those thrusters actually failed. They could not be fired because the valves needed to release the oxidizer didn't open. This meant that the planned operations to place the satellite in its correct orbit could not be carried out. It is still there orbiting in this lower orbit, you can say, in this particular example. Now, current status, although the satellite is now in an elliptical orbit, which is not the ideal for its intended function, it will not be able to function from that elliptical orbit in which it is now. ISRO is looking for alternative mission strategies, that what can be done of this satellite. Can we do another attempt, or if not, then what will happen if this satellite is deployed over there only, and how we can utilize it. The key points: launch details. The NVS-02 satellites is a key part of India's NavIC system. India's NavIC system has total 7 satellites. It is a constellation of 7 satellites, which this particular satellite was launched in January 29. It was carried abroad by GSLV Mark II rocket and marked a significant milestone for ISRO, as it was the 100th launch of ISRO from the Sriharikota spaceport. Current position after launch: the satellite was successfully placed in a geosynchronous transfer orbit (GTO), an elliptical orbit which is not ideal for NavIC. From this geosynchronous transfer orbit, it had to go to the geosynchronous, or I would say geostationary orbit. This orbit isn't suitable for the satellite's navigation system, which is why the orbit raising operation didn't go as planned. What went well for this satellite? Even though the thrusters failed to fire, there were several positive aspects of the mission. First, satellite solar panels deployed are as expected. Power generation has been stable. Communication between the satellite and the ground station was successfully established. All this is being, there. And that is why ISRO is planning that what to do next. Can we utilize these in some way to make that mission, a success? So ISRO confirmed that the launch was a success, with the rocket stages performing perfectly and the satellite reaching the initial orbit with high precision. But from this initial orbit to the intended orbit where it had to reach, that was not possible. So currently it is in its initial orbit, that elliptical orbit in which it is, there circulating around the Earth. It is not the desired orbit, hence it will not be able to function. Now, what's next for NVS02? NVS02 is the second in India's next generation NavIC system. Regional navigation system is designed to provide precise positioning, velocity and timing information to users across India and up to 1500 kilometers beyond its borders, which simply means that in India and 1500 kilometers beyond. This is going to be, I would say, the jurisdiction, or I would say the range of NavIC. Whereas there are other navigation systems like GPS of America, it is having 24 satellites, and NavIC is having only 7. And GPS is able to cover the entire Earth. So this is there. Despite the current orbit issues, NVS02 will enhance the NavIC system, helping with various applications like navigation, precision agriculture, emergency response, fleet management, mobile device location services, etc. etc. So satellite features an advanced navigation payload that operates on 3 frequency bands L1, L5 and S, ensuring high accuracy. But yes, since it is not deployed, so it would be difficult to say. Now about NavIC. So this is India's navigation system. Navigation of Indian constellation, navigation by Indian constellation is the full form, or another I would say technical name of it is Indian Regional Navigation Satellite System, IRNSS, which comprises of 7 satellites. So as you can see in this image, this is India and there are 7 satellites. The black ones are in the geostationary orbit, that is 36,000 kilometers above the Earth. The 4 over here you can see is in or are in the geosynchronous orbit, and they are covering up to 1500 kilometers from India. What kind of services they provide? They provide multiple services like positioning services they provide, and all we'll see the applications abhi. But yes, about the details about this NavIC system. It has 7 satellites, 3 satellites in geostationary orbit at 32.5 degree east, 83 degree east and 129.5 degree east. 4 satellites in inclined geosynchronous orbit at 55 degree east and 111.75 degree east with an inclination of 29 degrees. Ground network consisting of a control center, precise timing facility, range and integrity monitoring stations and two-way ranging stations. It provides positioning accuracy better than 10 meters throughout India and 20 meters in the surrounding 1500 kilometers area. So this accuracy is different for India and different for the vicinity of India. It offers 2 services. First is standard positioning system for civilians. This is the civilian use, and the second is the restricted services for strategic users like the armed forces, available in both L5 and S bands. So yes, 2 usage for the civilians, for the armed forces, and main application of NavIC you can see on the board right now: transportation, terrestrial, aerial and marine, location based services, personal mobility, resource monitoring, surveying and geodesy, scientific research, time dissemination and synchronization, safety of life alerts dissemination. All these kind of services can be offered by NavIC. So this becomes very important for India. We were having access to the American GPS, but yes, we need to be Atmanirbhar in every sense. So this. Now talking about the economic survey, chapter 1, part 2 of 2 it is. This is not part 1 of 2, part 2 of 2 it is. So agriculture, half 1 of financial year 25 growth, agriculture remained strong in the first half of FY25 with quarter 2 growing by 3.5%, showing improvement over the previous 4 quarters. Kharif production, total crop production is estimated at a record 1647.05 lakh metric tons, higher by 5.7% compared to 2023-24 and 8.2% higher than average of the past 5 years. So good news in terms of agricultural production of the Kharif crops. Monsoon impact definitely played a key role. It was being predicted that El Nino will, impact negatively, but the El Nino faded away. That was in our favor and there was excess amount of rain. Normal rainfall in 2024 improved water levels in reservoirs, ensuring enough water for farming during the next crop season. As of January 2025, more wheat and gram were planted compared to the previous year, and if no such extreme weather events happen, then we will also see an increase in the productivity of the Rabi crop in FY25. So the cultivation will start. next month by March, I guess. Now coming to the manufacturing. Half one of FY25, industrial sector grew by 6% in the first half of FY25, with quarter one seeing strong growth of 8.3%. However, growth slowed in quarter two due to weak global demand, seasonal factors, and festival timing. Recovery expectations: despite challenges, India's manufacturing growth is the fastest. Expectations of recovery in sectors like cement, iron, and steel after the rainy season are high, with mining and electricity expected to normalize after rain related disruptions. So, yes, this is some good news for the manufacturing sector also, and the manufacturing sector growth rate is the highest in the world. Geopolitical uncertainties. This definitely is posing risk to agricultural exports, services exports. We've not covered services yet. After this, we will cover services and as well as manufacturing exports. So, risks, political risks are high due to ongoing conflicts. Russia-Ukraine war. So, is there? Second one, I'm not writing because the ceasefire deal has been signed. But yes, that region is always fragile. Israel, Hamas, and all. And due to these disruptions, due to these conflicts, trade disruptions happen. Disruptions in the trade through important shipping routes like the Suez Canal have led to higher shipping costs, affecting global trade. The problems in global shipping, like delays in the Red Sea, Panama Canal, have pushed up goods prices and pressured global supply chains. So, that was there in the last fiscal. Trade uncertainty, World Trade Uncertainty Index has risen, driven by trade tensions and policy changes in major economies. Now, some major policy changes are happening in America. So, let's see how these major policy changes impact or have an impact on the other economies of the world, including India. So, America is becoming more inward looking or protectionist, due to which, our economies can be impacted. Now, service sector performance. Growth in first half of FY25. Service sector did well in the first half, growing by 7.1%. Subsectors, as all parts of service sector have done well. High frequency indicators, services PMI, that is Purchasing Managers Index, has been in the growth zone, supported by new orders, higher output, better sales, and more jobs. Services sector has been one sector which has the highest potential of value generation. Money generating sector it is. And if it is growing well, the money is being generated. But yes, it needs to be distributed as well. So jobs here needs to be generated more and more. Hospitality sector did well with hotel occupancy rates similar to the previous year. Average daily rates and revenue per room increased due to more business and leisure level. Air cargo and port traffic. Air cargo activity grew strongly while port traffic remained stable. Information technology, these companies did better than the previous quarter. So yes, overall a good news, and service sector is the major contributor in India's GDP, and if it is growing, so India's GDP definitely will be growing. GDP growth, if I talk about quarter 1 and quarter 2 of FY25, that is from April 2024 till April, May, June is the first quarter, July, August, September is the second quarter. So April to September, so India's GDP grew by 6.7% in quarter 1 and quarter 2, 6.7% in quarter 1 and 5.4% in quarter 2, resulting in a real GDP growth of 6% in the first half of the current fiscal year. Private final consumption expenditure grew by 6.7% year on year in first half. Rural demand contributed significantly to private spending growth, as shown by sales of two-wheelers, three-wheelers and tractors. Rural economic conditions, NABARD's survey reported that 78.5% of rural households increased their spending over the last year. Urban demand, mixed trends with slower growth in passenger vehicle sales but steady growth in air travel. Gross fixed capital formation, the growth in the first half of financial year 25 slowed from 10.1% in first half to 6.4% in the first half of financial year 25. Capital expenditure slowed across different levels of government due to elections and weak private investment. So elections definitely played a vital role because the governments and all they stop. They cannot rule out policies and all. Also, the model code of conduct comes into force. Residential investment slowed in quarter 2 FY25, showing market normalization after a period of strong performance. Green shoots, government spending on infrastructure increased by 8.2% in July to November 2024. RBI survey shows capacity utilization above the long-term average. So, this is there. Trade and remittances. Trade means export import. So, if I talk about merchandise exports, means goods exports, it grew by 1.6% year on year in April to December 2024, with the non-petroleum exports up by 7.1%. Merchandise imports, it also rose by 5.2%, driven by non-oil, non-gold imports and gold imports. Service trade surplus, we have a trade surplus in the service sector, helped balance the overall trade deficit. India has the 7th largest share in global service exports. Remittances, as per a report in 2024, India received $129 billion of remittances, and the most of it is coming from the developed countries, means white collared workers are there. Last year, $125 billion, before that, $120 billion, and this is how India has remained the country which is receiving the highest amount of remittances in the world. So, this is also highlighting the fact that the global market is becoming more and more stabilized. Current account deficit contained at 1.2% of GDP in Q2 of FY25. The exact current account deficit of the entire year will be, here in front of us by June. Now talking about the fiscal management. General government savings. Better control has helped macro stability in the country. Macro stability means fiscal indicators are stable. Fiscal deficit, current account deficit, inflation, these kind of indicators. Talking about the union government, improved fiscal discipline with a strong focus on capital expenditure. State finances, tax revenue of central government and states' own tax revenue increased at a similar pace. Increased tax sharing by the central government improved the overall tax revenue position of state governments. Talking about inflation trends, retail headline inflation dropped from 5.4% in FY24 to 4.9% in April to December 2024. Core inflation dropped by 0.9 percentage points between FY24 and April to December 2024. Food inflation increased from 7.5% in FY24 to 8.4% in FY25, April to December, driven by vegetables and pulses. Financial sector prospects, credit disbursement growing strongly but has recently slowed. Stability indicators, declining bad loans, strong capital buffers and good operational performance. Bad loans declined to a 12-year new low of 2.6%, means NPAs have reduced. Capital to risk weighted assets ratio, CRAR it is called as, stands at 16.7% as of September 2024. So, how much capital is there in the risky assets? So, this is what this ratio highlights. Profitability, bank's profit surged by 22.2% year on year in the first half. Let me tell you that this is the first half data till first half or till the third quarter, not the complete year's data. Labor market, unemployment rate dropped from 6% in 2017-18 to 3.2% in 23-24. Labor force participation rate and worker to population ratio have both increased. Formal sector growth, net EPFO subscriptions more than doubled from 61 lakh in FY19 to 131 lakh in FY24, but yet most of India's workforce remains to be employed in the unorganized sector. It is somewhere around 90% of India's workforce is in the unorganized sector. Technological developments, AI integration offers chances to boost productivity and create jobs, but yes, as of now, things are moving slow. The outlook and way forward, growth trajectory, steady but varies by region. Service sector drives global growth, that is there. Inflationary pressures easing globally, but risks maintain or remain due to political issues. Monetary policies are more supportive, but yes, varies from region to region and is also subject to the uncertainties. Domestic outlook, if I talk about India's outlook, rural demand is recovering, which is good for spending. Investment activity expected to increase, supported by higher government spending and better business expectations. Food inflation likely to ease in Q4 FY25 with seasonal drops in vegetable prices and crop arrivals. And growth prospects, expected growth in FY26 between 6.3% and 6.8%. Experts have predicted it to be somewhere around 6.4 to 6.5%. So let us see. The Indian economy is growing faster than the world economy at double the pace. This is some good news. But we need to grow at a much faster pace, and most importantly, that growth needs to be inclusive. That growth needs to be job creating. Then only issues like inequality will be resolved, unemployment will be resolved, and overall growth will happen. The future definitely will depend on this. Now coming on to the MCQs. Consider the following statements and with respect to NavIC and mark the correct one. It is a constellation of 7 satellites, all of them deployed in geostationary orbit. NavIC can cover 1500 kilometers from east and west of India, from east to west of India. You know, which of these statements are true? You have to find it over here. Carefully answer this. Which of the following are the applications of NavIC? Location services, resource mobility, national security. Only one and two, only one and three, or all of the above? Third, consider the following statements with respect to remittances received by India in 2024 and mark the correct one. It was the highest ever remittances received by India. Majority of remittances came from the developed countries. Only one, only two, both one and two, neither one nor two. And fourth, the term core inflation refers to which of the following? Retail inflation, wholesale inflation, retail inflation minus food inflation, retail inflation minus food and fuel inflation. I have not discussed this term, but this is some very basic term which you should be knowing, and I expect you guys to answer it correctly. MCQs of yesterday. So recently a term Jevons paradox was in news. What does it mean? When a resource becomes efficient, then it is used less by the population? No, it is used more by the population. So this is the correct option. When a resource becomes efficient, then it is used more by the population. So B is the correct option over here, given by William Stanley Jevons in context of the coal consumption in England. Second, which of these can be a possible impact of artificial intelligence? Job losses, definitely it can be a possible impact. More efficiency in work, definitely it is. So both of these are there. So both 1 and 2 are going to be the correct option. Third, which of the following factors can affect the global economy? Supply chains, yes, supply chain restrictions can impact the global economies negatively. Monetary policies, yes, it can lead to inflation somewhere else as well. If monetary policies are, I would say, loosened in some or tightened in some, I would say, some other countries, because we are in a globalized world. Geopolitical conflicts, yes, they can impact negatively. So all three can have possible impacts on the global economy, hence all of the above. Fourth, which sector is expected to witness the highest growth rate? Agriculture, manufacturing, mining, or services? The answer to this is services. It is expected to have a growth rate of somewhere around more than 7%. So with this, we have come to an end of today's session as well. I will be seeing you tomorrow now with more such informative news pieces. Till then, you guys very well know what to do. Keep studying, keep reading, keep writing, and most importantly, keep revising. Namaste. Jai Hind.